Welcome to the Secret Sauce of Selling podcast, the ultimate guide and sales gym to unlocking the secrets of successful selling. I'm your host, James Abraham, and here today to continue to empower the best generation of sales professionals and business leaders the world has ever seen. And I'm super excited to be here with you today with my close friend, Troy Elmore from Texas. Is that right? Did I get that right?
Yes, right
Yep.
outside of Houston.
Cool. Absolutely. And we're so excited to be here so that we can share top level insights, tactics, strategies, behaviors, attitudes, and techniques to help you listeners and viewers take your sales performance and leadership game to the next level. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Welcome to the show, Troy.
Thanks, James. Glad to be here. But excited.
Troy,
And
today we
also
have a really
not giving yourself enough credit, James. You are a rock star in this network too. So this is my pleasure as much as hopefully it is yours.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much. And I've learned so much from you. So I appreciate everything you've contributed to my success. So Troy, today's topic is something a little bit out of the ordinary. Our topic is how not to become the person you don't want to be. Tell me a little bit more about what that means.
Oh, to me, it's salespeople in general. Obviously, a lot of them have a real bad rap, right? People kind of look at them and they think about what a salesperson means to them, and so when I think about selling and I think about this profession that really is a noble profession and can change a lot of lives, not just the salespersons and not just their family, but the people they're selling to. Sometimes, in the essence of trying to sell, we sort of turn into the person that we probably look at from the outside and say, I can't even believe I'm acting like this person. And so that's really what I mean by that is how do we become the person that we really want to be, that we can be proud of, and still be super successful in this game or this professional selling world.
Yeah, I think you've just hit on something so important. Salespeople don't really sign up mentally to become salespeople. It's not what it is. Like, oh, I think I'm gonna be a salesperson one day. And usually, many times, they kind of fall into or drift into the role. It's not that they, their mom says to them when they're kids, go to bed early, honey. I want you to study well so you can be a great salesperson one day. And I think at the end of the day, we all are involved in sales in one way or another. And so, from a mindset perspective, what are the triggers that start to fit to pop up that I'd say sales professionals at some point say, wait a second, this is not where I'm not on the road I should be on here. I've taken a wrong turn. What are what are those signs that salespeople typically start to figure out or realize this isn't going where I was hoping?
Well, I think that it probably is as simple as when you're trying to have a conversation with somebody, let's say one of your prospects, and you could feel that lack of connection. You could feel it where they're, instead of being leaning in towards you, they're almost repelling a little bit towards you, right? And their defense walls are getting thicker and taller, and full of rebar and concrete and all that kind of good stuff. So I think that's sort of an easy way to start to really see that. Now, salespeople don't always see that, but if you were in a team sell environment, the person who was selling with you would absolutely notice it.
Yeah. So I want to just take a step back for a second, and we're Sandler people, and we focus a lot on the mindset and a lot on the attitude. And so I want to start with just first of all talking about the sales professional from the perspective of a salesperson, a sales professional. But I do want to talk about leadership as well later on. And so salespeople in general, they go through that whole routine. They're either closing, not closing, qualifying, not qualifying, getting a lot of rejection. And at some point, something actually happens where they have a choice. And we know the top professionals, the A players, they choose to take that road to success. They choose to take control of their destiny, their lives, their day to day. And there are others that struggle.
Yeah.
So I think my question to you is, Troy, focusing on those winners. What do winners do these days? What's the difference between a winner and someone that wants to be a winner but is really struggling with a lot of baggage, a lot of belief issues, a lot of behavioral restraints, a lot of rejection, fear of rejection, stuff like that?
Mm.
What are the? I actually want to talk about the winners. What do the winners have? that we should really focus on starting to try to achieve?
I think that the winners have either figured out by their own, the hard knocks, taking the bumpy road, if you will, or maybe somebody has told them, but they have figured out that what their life, their external roles, right, their life in general, their failures, their successes, everything that's happening to them is really not, it's not correlated to who they are as a person, right? And so once the winners have figured out that as a person they have value, they have worth, because that is our biggest fear as a human being, is right, to feel like we don't have any worth, to feel like we're unlovable. But once they feel like that as a human, that they have worth, that they're lovable, that there's nothing that can take that away, then they start to get more comfortable with the fact that life is full of failure, right? Life is full of failure, and failure is what helps you get there. Failure is what helps you grow. It's just part of who you are. It's part of what makes you successful, but it's not. It's again, it's about the choices you make that sometimes cause failure, and hopefully you learn lessons from it. But if you can't separate the choices you're making from who you are as an individual, then you are destined to only be as good as what other people think you are going to be, or you're only as good as your next failure, because it puts you into sort of a depression mode for a period of time. And at some point, you're just like, I can't handle this anymore, right? And so when you learn to separate those two, like the winners do, there's really nothing that they can't accomplish if they put their mind to it.
Yeah, when I was younger, we used to call it thick-skinned people. We didn't call them winners. We just call them thick-skinned people. Why thick skin? Because they, you say something to them doesn't bother them very much, and they just get on with it. They come back,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah,
And a lot of times, I'm gonna be honest and say what from my experience as a young sales professional, what I found is that when people talked about those thick-skinned people, they usually taught they never actually praised them. They usually said, he's not very smart, but he has
hmm
thick skin, right? He's not so
yeah,
great. He's a little rough around the edges, but he's got thick skin. I'll hand it to him. I'll hand him that. He's got thick skin, right? And so,
yes.
and,
But they
and
didn't really,
like, go
they
ahead.
didn't really explain what it really means. They didn't really explain that, they equated that thick skin to a person that I didn't want to be,
Mm,
versus explaining, the difference between, your again, your external world, the world that's around you in sales, that is that is so full of rejection, that is so full of failure, that is so full of situations where you have some serious highs and some serious lows. And so that, but they don't explain. They go, you just have some thick skin with that failure, it's fine, just bounce back up, be resilient, get off the horse, fall off the horse, get back on. But nobody tells you how to do it. Nobody says, well, the reason you can get back on very quickly, and it's not to say that you don't ever get pissed, you don't ever get upset. Of course you do, but you just don't stay there, right? They don't explain it in terms of a worth, and they don't explain it in terms of humans, and what we really, really, if we don't feel like we have worth, we feel very unsafe, right? And so, and once if they would explained it that way, it would have made so much more logical sense to me, and I could have gone, okay, it wouldn't have like it would have changed me overnight, but it definitely would have helped me go down the path quicker.
yeah, yeah. And it's so interesting because I think at the end of the day, it's really that fear of rejection. How do we deal with rejection? And sales is a rejection game. That's what it's all about. I mean, listeners, secret sauce of selling is go and deal with rejection, I think, because that's what we do. That's what salespeople do. That's what business owners do. That's what entrepreneurs do. That's what lawyers do, doctors do. Everybody out there with a profession has the option to get
Yeah,
rejected, right? And it's a world of choice, especially if you're on the days of social media and TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and AI. I mean, people are dropping one AI for the other in a second because there's something just
yes,
better that's come out, right? And
yeah,
so I think one of the biggest lessons that salespeople don't get taught is how to deal with rejection. They should go to rejection school. By the way, can I do a commercial here? I mean, it is. Oh
yeah,
wait,
sure,
it's my podcast. Yes, I can. We teach
absolutely,
that. We teach
yes.
that. Come to our gym, right? Come to the Sandler gym and learn how to become strong, how to develop the muscle, how to be resilient. It's like the abs of sales. It's the abs of sales. But
I,
no one
you know,
wants to do it. They want to drink beer, not work out, which is, by the way, yeah.
But,
What do you think?
it's, yeah, drinking a lot of beer without working out is really kind of a tough thing. Drinking beer is not a bad thing, but I will tell you, it's what I've kind of understood, and I love the debate on this. Is I don't think that rejection's the real problem. I think the real problem is how we feel inside when we think someone's rejecting us. Right? I really don't think it's not rejection. It's the feeling inside. It's that feeling of not feeling worthy. And the interesting thing about that is that we're projecting that from our own insecurity. And so we're almost we have our own insecurities. We have our own not okay feelings. We have our own lack of sense of self, sense of worth. And so it's almost like we're waiting for it. But when it happens, it's like, there it is, right? And so, but once we realize we have worth, we can't project that anymore, right? We can't project it anymore. And so does it still sting a little bit? That stings a little bit here and there, but just doesn't really sting anywhere near as long, because you start to realize that it's not them doing it to you, you're doing it to yourself, right?
Exactly.
They don't
Yeah.
even know you.
You can't,
They don't even know
they
you,
don't know.
right?
Oh yeah. You can't manage anything you can't control. You can't control them. You can only control yourself. And there's an interesting point, which, by the way, I mean, can I throw in the neuroscience behind this whole thing? And this is something that we work on a lot. And we talked before we went on live, and we talked a little bit about getting up early and stuff like that, and working out. One of the things I prescribe to my clients for success is exercise in the morning. And some people tell me,
Mhm.
James, I don't want to exercise. I said, fair enough. Well, then that will stall your highway to success. And what they find from a science perspective, especially in salespeople that work out in the morning do way better in their roles. They deal with rejection better. They sell better. They put less pressure, simply because they're giving their body the type of hormones that the body is looking for all day. Because salespeople they want to hear the word yes. They want to get oxytocin and dopamine and endorphins and all this stuff. And so you're not getting it all day. And so if we're not getting it, what are we getting? We're getting cortisol, the cheap substitute. And that is a stress hormone. That's why we feel so crappy when someone says no, or someone's rejecting or stringing us along, and so on. So in my opinion, we always have to give ourselves that, and we have to make up for it, not go and look for it out there in the sales call. What are your thoughts with regards to what salespeople should be doing in order to make themselves feel better, in order to make themselves feel wholesome, to make it their strong identity? What should they be doing in order to build themselves up so they don't turn into the person that they don't want to be?
I think that one of the things you just said is huge. I mean, exercising in the morning is a great way to start the day. I don't always exercise in the morning. I generally, because I get up early and I come in here, but I'll work out at night. I exercise at night quite a bit. It helps me sleep better. But I think it comes down to vitality, right? Do I have the vitality and the energy level? And the energy level is not just physical, right? It's emotional. When you are going through, failures, whether it be big failures, many failures, it sucks a lot of energy from you. And so if you don't have that stamina built up through it, and you don't have to, and people kind of picture exercise or working out as, some dude in the gym just killing it. It doesn't have to be like that. It's really all about getting a minimum amount of physical fitness plus weights. Weights I love because it lasts all day, right? It lasts all day or it lasts all night, right? It continuously goes versus an anaerobic running, which doesn't last as long. But I think that the best people learn to, one, how do they manage their energy so they have the most amount of energy each day? Because you can't just have it for work. You got to have it for home too, especially if you have a family. I can't come home and be so literally exhausted that I don't give them any time, because what's the point of even being in sales if I say it's about my family or helping people? So that's one thing. But I think managing the head and not listening to yourself. There's a great author. His name is John Gordon. He writes a lot of books. He's got a great phrase, and I'll give him credit for this, but he says you got to stop talking to yourself, and stop listening to yourself, and you got to start talking to yourself. Right? If you just listen to yourself all day long, 90% of the crap that's in your head is negative. So, well, that's proactively and purposefully or intentionally, whatever phrase you want to use, right? For the day and age, telling yourself what you need to believe, what you need to understand, plus keeping that stamina up, and then also, documenting those successes, documenting those lessons. Sometimes I think we forget to document these little successes, and it's not hard to remember all the crap that's happening, all the bad things. Sometimes we forget about the successes, and I'll give you an exercise. James, if you've ever done this, right, when you start talking about words that make that signify the difference between someone feeling okay versus not okay. People Words that are okay, like happy, comfortable, elated, versus the not okay words like, frustrated, worried, disappointed. It's amazing how people can come up with so many not okay words. and they struggle so much with coming up with okay words. That tells you how much negative stuff is in our head, right? And then
Yeah.
battling that. So it's some of the secrets.
Yeah. Low frequency, low frequency
Yes,
stuff. And and
yes,
and and that's exactly it. I mean, I'm a huge law of attraction
mhm,
advocate when it comes to this. You know, everyone's like, "Oh, the law of attraction, karma." Yeah, you create your own karma. If you say, if you, if people, if if they constantly talk about how bad things are, how crappy their prospects and buyers are, how the market is so terrible, that is exactly what they're getting. They're attracting that same
yes,
frequency. Guys, listen out there. Frequency means
yes,
what you frequently see. So make sure you're looking at what you want to look at and not what you don't want to look at. And that's exactly to the point, turning into the person we don't want to be. And there's a great book also when it comes to this stuff, What to Say When You Talk to Yourself.
yes.
Shad Helmstetter, I think. Yeah.
Oh,
Whoa. Really good. And also Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. That's a Joe Dispenza book. But, so Troy, you're a family guy, and you enjoy. I know you mentioned this. You enjoy watching your children grow up.
yes, yes.
So, when was the moment that you realized that you wanted to be in the profession you are in order to fulfill your purpose in life, and how does your family fit into that?
No, I realized. I realized I wanted to be a salesperson, probably for the wrong reasons. But back in 1991 ish or so, I was working for a company, and this is my automatic light that shuts off in my office for energy consumption. So I realized in 1991 or so, before I was even in sales, that I really wanted to be a salesperson, only because I saw all these salespeople playing tons of golf and hanging out and looked like they were having such a good time, and I'm sitting in front of a computer doing the engineering thing because that's what I have an undergrad in. And I went, oh, I want their job. Well, I had no clue what the job really entailed, but it looked cool. It looked a heck of a lot better than me sitting in front of the computer. So that was just my thing. And so it probably took until I started the Sandler business back in 2003. It was when I probably really started to think proactively, because I only had one child then, about how I could really change my life and the people who are in it from this sales profession. I'd already gotten a glimpse of it up to that point, but I wouldn't tell you that I was very mature in the thinking. It was, and so, but since my I have four girls. One's 18; she's getting ready to graduate high school, and I have three others that are triplets, and they're 13. And so, probably when they were born too, which is 13 years ago, almost 14, I started really thinking about how do I want to shape my life to try to be the best influence on these girls. And Lord knows I'm not perfect at it. They remind me of that. But but certainly I see some of the choices I make quite a bit more in the lens of how it affects my family and how it affects our future and such. So and sales is one of the best ways to help you get to where you want to in life. And on top of that, some of my girls are even kind of looking at it thinking, "Who, Dad? I might want to do what you do." That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
It's purpose in life a lot of times, a lot. And I find this with, prospects and clients. Some prospects I can't qualify simply because they're just not focused on their purpose in life. And that's one of my qualification questions is, which, if it's a business, what are your vision and mission in your business? Where are your business going? If a leader cannot articulate that or will not deal with that, I can't help them. And also a salesperson, we help salespeople, individual contributors, and if they can't focus on what their purpose is, it's not important to them, and say, well, it's not really important to me, then it's going to be hard helping them grow. So how do you help,
Yes.
when it comes to your clients, when it comes to people you work with, how do you encourage them to really focus on their purpose and make their dreams come true? And because I think people that work with us, it's not only about getting better at sales, it's just getting better at life and making their dreams come true. And as you mentioned, I agree 100%. I think sales is the best profession ever. You get to help
Yeah.
people solve problems. You make as much money as you want, and literally, there's much money as you want. There's never a ceiling on the amount of money you could make in this business.
Right.
And you can call the shots on what you want to do as long as you're doing the work. So, what are your thoughts when it comes to um, sales professionals really focusing on their true essence and purpose?
Well, I think it comes down to a phrase that I'm sure you say as well, but the salespeople tend to focus way too much on what they have to do to be successful. What behavior do I need to do? What kind of prospecting call do I need to make? What kind of techniques do I need to do? And some of them they look at and they say, I don't know if I can do that. That's gonna, I don't know if I can really get to that right decision maker. Even if I know how to do it in a way that's not going to upset the person, I just don't think I can ask that question. What if they get upset with me, right? Or I don't know if I can do all these behaviors each day. That just seems like it's too much. And so they focus all this what I have to do, and they forget why they're doing it, right? And so I think
Mm.
that's been my mantra, and what I talk to him about all the time. Like, guys, can you imagine? Like, I can't imagine going to my oldest daughter. I always tell the story. Going to my oldest daughter, Brooke, and especially when she was younger, and kneeling down, or any of my daughters, kneeling down on one knee and just telling her how bad life is about to be. Can you imagine sitting down and going, "Hey, Brooke, I just want to let you know, we're gonna. I know you like this house and where we live, but we're gonna have to move. You're going to have to quit all your extracurricular stuff. You're not going to be able to go to college. You're going to
Oh,
probably have to get a job, right? Can you imagine me saying that to her? And she's looking at me like those little brown eyes saying, why, Dad? Why do we have to do all that? That sounds horrible. And I go, because Dad's afraid to make calls to people he doesn't know.
whoa! I love that. That's boom. That's exactly it. That is the truth.
Dad's afraid to ask tough questions. So sorry, babe. Sorry, to my wife, to everybody else. We could have a really fulfilling, wonderful life, had lots of value, but we can't because Dad's afraid to ask a really tough question. I mean, it doesn't even make any sense. Then it's so illogical. So if you know your why, it pretty much solve a whole lot of those problems, because there's no one who's going to get in between. It's like people always say. I always tell people they're born with all the motivation in the world. It's there. You got to figure it out, right? You weren't born with low motivation building it up. Everybody was born with all the motivation that they need in the world to get where they need to get to, or they wouldn't walk, right? Now, sometimes it gets beat out of them. Sometimes they buy into what society says. Sometimes somebody says something that's trying to be nice, keep them
Yeah.
safe, and it brings their motivation down. But they can get it back. They can get it back when they start looking at their whys, which is one of the
Yeah,
reasons we talk.
absolutely. Absolutely. Babies, everyone says, oh, no, I wasn't born a salesperson, or salespeople are not born. Guess what? Everyone's born a salesperson, because when a baby is born, what does it do? First thing,
Yeah, has
starts
to.
to cry.
It's
Why does it
right.
cry? It wants attention. It wants to be fed. It wants to be changed, right?
Yeah.
And then they're crying and crying and crying, right? And at some point, and they're curious too. So they're always looking around. They're always searching. And at some point in that baby's life, or a toddler, that baby will reach a fork in the road, or we like to
Mm-hmm.
call Wim Junction at Sandler, right? And at that point, they will either continue to be curious or they will become needy.
Mm-hmm.
The needy ones, which is the majority, they're the ones that start to suffer. The curious
Yes.
ones, very, very small percentage, they're the ones that get onto that highway to success. And
Mm-hmm.
I love to say this, I think the number one reason people fail in this business and become the negative version of themselves is because they're afraid of three things. They're not afraid of talking to strangers, they're afraid of asking tough questions, and they are afraid of talking about money. And those are three things that were probably hardwired in their heads when they were children by their parents. Don't talk to
Yep.
strangers, don't talk about money, and don't stop asking so many questions. Right? Don't talk to people on the internet. Then they grow up, and what do they need to do? Talk to people on the internet, make a living. So
Yep.
if they can fix that, if they can overcome those three compelling emotional setbacks, then that motivation needs to come back. That's really what's holding them. In my opinion, I
You,
might be wrong.
no, I think you're right on the money. I will tell you that being perfect, super, super vulnerable here, that those emotions still trigger me even today. And I've been doing this for 30 years, but I managed to get past it because that why is so much greater than that what,
Yep,
right? So the
absolutely.
why
The why.
pushes people that I don't like talking about money, but I'm not especially fond of going to talk to strangers just to talk to strangers. I mean, I can maintain the conversation. I don't really like asking questions that make people uncomfortable. I mean, that's just not my style. But I do it because it's good for them, it's good for my family, and it ain't about me,
It's
right? So
necessary. It's
yeah,
necessary.
it's not about.
Excellent.
And
All right.
salespeople, I will tell you one thing: salespeople, there's no such thing as a naturally born great salesperson. There's a lot of naturally born bad ones. There's some innate qualities that can make you better, But I think people have to remember, especially if you're coming into this going, I could never be a salesperson. No, sales is taught, right? It's taught. You are taught to be world class. And so people sometimes don't enter this profession thinking that I'm not a natural born whatever. Usually the people who are labeled that can't stop talking. They're so, you're a natural born salesperson. You don't listen at all. You just chatter, 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 right? So
Yeah,
my thoughts.
absolutely. So I think it's the point where I need to ask you, Troy, what is your secret sauce of selling?
Yeah, I think it kind of goes back a little bit. I hope I don't sound like I'm repeating myself, but the secret sauce is always whenever I am about to go into a conversation that's specific about selling, especially people I don't know. I am literally writing down what my mindsets need to be. Right, my mindset meaning in terms of I ask tough questions because it's both good for them, it's good for my family, it's good for me. It might be something like
Mm,
that, but I'm purposely and proactively always thinking about my mindset and where it needs to be because you have a choice on it. And that's the there's I don't have now. Do I practice this all the time? Do I get muscle memory to it? Do I try to make it where it's mastery, where I can do it without thinking? Yes, but you got to start off with that right mindset. And so that's the only I can't tell you any more of a secret sauce. And also, I'm deathly afraid and I'll tell you this again. I don't want my parents when I grew up. Now they're okay. They're pretty well off because they've saved. But when I was young, they really had times where I felt like they had no money. They'd have conversations where they'd say, "Hey, we got like $1 left in our bank account," and I'm like, "What?" Now they had probably other money in different places, but as a kid, you're hearing this stuff and you're freaking out. Like, what? What are we going to do? What are we going to eat? How are we going to do this? Right? And so I, on top of wanting to help my family out and really help add value to other people's lives, there's still a little bit of a fear of ever being into a situation, where I can't sustain my family, I can't help them, and so I kind of have to balance those little fears with all the right things to do, and then get that mindset in the right place, and then just step back and do what you do and be authentic and spend real time with people. Be curious.
mm,
Really try to really get to know them. I mean, people say, "Oh, you got to empathize, you got to do this," but if you're curious and you really tremendously care and you want to know about people's worlds, it's amazing. You don't even have to have that good of techniques to be a great salesperson. If you just
yeah,
want to get where they are, go where they are, right? And you can lead them
absolutely.
doing that too.
Absolutely. I love it. Troy, are you listening to anything interesting these days? Podcasts, books, reading any books, any plays, any movies, miniseries? I don't know what, Netflix. There's a lot of different things people share here that they believe is good for sale, that it can contribute to salespeople becoming better. Anything you'd like to share?
I was referred into listening to this on Netflix. There's a deal called I think it's called Full Swing, and it's got about 7 or 8 episodes of professional golfers, and it walks through their lives, and it's so much about mindset and what they do to be the best of the best. And so when you watch these guys, and it's guys like Rory McIlroy and Justin Thomas, and Spieth, Jordan Spieth, all these guys that are really really good. And so each one of these episodes, and you're just getting a hint into how these guys handle pressure like none other. So I think that's a great one. We plan on, if we can, trying to use some of that stuff in some of the training too, because I just think it's a wealth of knowledge. It's a wealth of understanding of how the best of the best manage what's going on in their head at the top of their game.
Yeah, that is so important. For real professionals, deal with what's really important, and that's what's going on between their ears. And
Yes.
sometimes it can be scary for some people, but others realize that that is a shortcut. It is a secret sauce. I love it. Excellent. Troy, how can people
Yeah.
get in touch with you?
Well, they can get in touch with me pretty easy through our website. It's actually, I always tell people the easiest way to do it is just to go to Sandler.com and then look up location Houston, right? And then or Google Sandler Houston, and you'll see me, Troy Elmore. It's easier than probably trying to tell you my long website, which is www.iss. Everybody knows it's www, but iss.sandler.com. But it's easy just to go to Sandler.com, look up Houston, you'll see Troy Elmore, and there I am.
Awesome. Excellent. Troy, thank you so much. This has been a great conversation. Lots of
Enjoyed it.
gold. And to our listeners and viewers, be good to yourselves, be good to your prospects and buyers. If you're a sales leader, be good to your people, and make sure you're doing the right things for the right reasons. No guts, no gain. I'll see you next time.
All right. And James, you're a rock star, man. Appreciate you.
Thanks, man.